poor boy wins a scholarship, but his rich classmates try to sabotage him. What happens next teaches them a valuable lesson. Elias sat on the edge of his bed, his fingers trembling as he held the acceptance letter. A wave of excitement washed over him, and his heart raced like a drum. This was not just any school. It was a prestigious private school, a place where dreams could take flight. Finally, a chance for something better, he whispered to himself, imagining a future filled with opportunities. But alongside the thrill bubbled a twinge of anxiety. What if he didn't fit in? What if he was a nobody in a world of somebodies? As he prepared for his first day, Elias dressed carefully. He chose a simple shirt and jeans, hoping to blend in. But as he stood before the mirror, he wondered if he could ever truly belong. "What will everyone think of me?" he mused, biting his lip. He shook off the thoughts, determined to focus on the possibilities ahead. The school loomed before him, grand and imposing, its brick walls speaking of history and privilege. The moment he stepped through the gates, he felt the weight of curious eyes upon him. Students in crisp uniforms chatted and laughed, their smiles sharp like knives. Elias could barely hear their words, but he caught snippets of whispers that made his stomach twist. "Who does he think he is?" one girl scoffed. "Look at his shoes," another muttered, glancing down at his worn sneakers. Elias's heart sank. He was an outsider here, and the stark contrast between his humble background and their world of wealth was painfully clear. A knot formed in his stomach as he walked down the hall, each step echoing his feelings of isolation. "Maybe I should have stayed where I was," he thought, his optimism beginning to fade. In the cafeteria, Elias picked a quiet corner, hoping to go unnoticed. He observed the groups around him, each one a bubble of laughter and camaraderie. Juliet caught his eye. She was vibrant and full of life, effortlessly drawing others in with her warm smile. Elias felt a flicker of hope. Maybe she would talk to him. But just then, a loud voice cut through the chatter. "Hey, what's the new kid doing over there all alone?" It was Trent, the golden boy with a smirk that dripped with arrogance. Elias's heart raced as he heard the laughter that followed. He wanted to shrink away, to disappear into the shadows. "Ignore them," he whispered to himself, but the sting of their words lingered. As days turned into weeks, Elias tried to navigate this new world. He mustered the courage to approach Juliet during lunch. "Hi, I'm Elias," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. She looked up, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Nice to meet you. I've seen you around," she replied, her smile genuine. For a moment, Elias felt a spark of connection. Could this be friendship? Yet, the relief was short-lived. Trent's cruel jokes began to escalate, targeting Elias with relentless precision. "What's wrong, Elias? Did your mom pack your lunch in a trash bag?" He laughed one afternoon, the words hitting Elias like a punch to the gut. The laughter of the other students filled the room, drowning him in humiliation. The fear of rejection clawed at him. "Why can't I just fit in?" he wondered, the weight of peer pressure growing heavier each day. When the school announced a talent show, Elias felt a mix of excitement and dread. The thought of performing was both thrilling and terrifying. "You should totally do it," Juliet encouraged one day, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "You have a great voice." But the shadows of Trent's taunts loomed large. "What if they laugh at me?" Elias replied, his voice thick with doubt. Despite his fears, he felt a flicker of determination. "Maybe this is my chance," he thought, wrestling with the push and pull of hope and anxiety. As the date approached, he found himself wondering, could he really stand in front of everyone and share his story? The answer felt like a tightrope, balancing between fear and hope, and Elias knew he had to decide. Would he take a leap, or would he let fear hold him back? The days at the prestigious private school passed slowly for Elias. Each morning, he walked through the grand entrance, feeling the weight of expectation on his shoulders. He observed the other students as they laughed and chatted, their voices blending into a symphony of privilege that felt foreign to him. Despite his best efforts to blend in, he often felt like a ghost, unnoticed and unwelcomed. One afternoon, while sitting alone on a bench during lunch, he spotted Juliet. Her bright smile was like a beacon in the sea of faces. She approached him, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Mind if I sit here?" she asked, her voice warm and inviting. Sure," Elias replied, surprised but pleased. He had noticed how Juliet seemed different from the others. She didn't carry the same air of entitlement. As she sat down, he felt a flicker of hope. Maybe he could find a friend here after all. They talked about classes, their favorite music, and what they wanted to be when they grew up. Juliet listened intently, her laughter ringing like a melody. "You have good taste in music," she said, her eyes genuinely bright. "Have you ever thought about performing? You should totally do it." Elias felt his cheeks heat up. "I don't know. I'm not really good enough." "Nonsense," she replied, leaning closer. "Everyone has something special to share. You just need to believe in yourself." But as Elias began to feel more at ease, the shadow of Trent loomed over him. Trent was the embodiment of everything Elias feared. Tall, confident, and surrounded by a group of equally wealthy friends, Trent had a reputation for being ruthless. One day, while Elias was walking to class, he overheard Trent and his friends snickering behind him. "Look at the charity case," Trent sneered, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I wonder how he got in here. Did they feel sorry for him?" Elias's heart sank. He tried to ignore the laughter that followed, but it pierced through him like a knife. He glanced at Juliet, hoping for a reassuring smile, but she looked away, her expression changing to one of discomfort. It was as if the air had been sucked out of the room. The weeks rolled on, and the torment from Trent became routine. Elias braced himself for each encounter, trying to build a thick skin, but the weight of rejection pressed heavily upon him. He often found himself alone, staring at a blank wall, lost in thought. "Why can't I just fit in?" he whispered to himself one evening, feeling defeated. Then, one day, the school announced a talent show, and the moment the news broke, Elias felt a mix of excitement and dread. Juliet was ecstatic. "You should totally perform," she exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious. "You have to show everyone what you can do." But as the news spread, Elias could feel the shadows of Trent and his friends creeping closer. He overheard Trent's voice, dripping with malice. "Let's see if the new kid has the guts to perform. It'll be hilarious." Elias's stomach turned. He wanted to hide away, but the thought of disappointing Juliet kept him from retreating completely. He felt torn, the desire for acceptance, battling against the fear of humiliation. On the day of the talent show, Elias stood backstage, his heart racing. "You can do this," he muttered to himself, trying to drown out the voices of doubt echoing in his head. Juliet found him, her presence soothing. "Just remember, it's about sharing your story. You'll be amazing." But as he stepped into the spotlight, the laughter from Trent's group echoed in his mind. He took a deep breath, trying to push through the fear. It was a moment that would define him. As he looked out at the audience, he saw a mix of faces, some curious, others indifferent. He felt small. "Just be yourself," he whispered to himself, determined to find his voice, even in the face of adversity. But in the depths of his heart, he couldn't shake the feeling that the struggle for belonging was only just beginning. Elias stood backstage, his heart pounding as he waited for his turn to perform at the talent show. The energy in the auditorium buzzed with excitement, but for him, it felt different. He could hear the whispers of students, the giggles, and the occasional shout of encouragement from friends. Juliet stood beside him, her eyes shining with support. "You've got this, Elias," she said, her voice steady. "Just remember why you are doing this." Elias nodded, though the fear still gripped him tightly. He thought of the song he had chosen, a piece that spoke of his struggles and dreams. It was a reflection of his journey, a glimpse into his soul. Taking a deep breath, he stepped onto the stage, the spotlight warming his face, and the audience fell silent, As he began to sing, the words flowed from his heart. He poured every ounce of emotion into the performance, and he could see the audience start to listen. Faces that once looked at him with disdain were now filled with curiosity and empathy. For a moment, he felt like he belonged. But just as he reached a powerful note, a loud laugh rang out from the back of the auditorium. It was Trent, his smug face lit by the stage lights. "Hey everyone, is this a talent show or a crying contest?" he shouted, his voice dripping with mockery. Laughter erupted, cutting through Elias's song like a knife. The energy shifted instantly. Elias's voice faltered, and he felt his heart sink. The warmth he had felt moments before vanished, leaving only a cold emptiness. He looked out at the crowd, and the smiles he had seen earlier were replaced by smirks and giggles. "Shut up, Trent!" Juliet yelled from the side of the stage, her fists clenched. "He's trying to share something real." But Trent only laughed harder. "Real? This is a joke. Look at him." He turned to the crowd, gesturing wildly. "Who wants to hear more of this?" His friends joined in, adding to the raucous laughter that echoed through the room. Elias felt the heat of embarrassment rising in his cheeks. He wanted to run, to hide from the eyes that were now filled with ridicule. The vulnerability he had laid bare was now a target for cruelty. He looked at Juliet, who watched him with concern, her expression shifting from anger to worry. The music faded into silence, and Elias stood frozen, trapped in a moment of despair. The shame wrapped around him like a heavy blanket, suffocating his spirit. He had hoped this performance would be his moment of triumph, but instead, it had become a scene of humiliation. As the laughter continued, Elias's mind raced. "Why did I think I could do this?" he thought. "Why did I believe I could fit in?" Each cruel laugh felt like a reminder of his status as an outsider, a reminder that he would never truly belong. In that moment, something shifted inside him. He felt a flicker of anger rise against Trent and the others who found joy in his pain. "I just wanted to share my story," he whispered to himself, the words barely audible over the laughter. And then, unexpectedly, he found the strength to speak. "This isn't funny," he said, his voice breaking through the noise. "I'm not a joke. This is who I am." The laughter paused, and for a brief second, silence fell over the auditorium. Elias looked around, trying to meet the eyes of those who had laughed. He wanted them to see the truth behind his words, the hurt that their cruelty had caused. "Maybe you don't understand," he continued, his voice stronger now. "But my story matters. We all have our struggles. We all have things we want to share. It's time to stop the jokes and start listening." The room was still. Juliet's eyes widened with surprise and admiration. Elias felt a small surge of hope. Perhaps his words could reach someone, anyone. Maybe he could turn this moment of shame into something meaningful. As he stepped back, the weight of the microphone felt heavy in his hand, but he had spoken his truth. He had shown them a glimpse of his vulnerability, despite the laughter that still echoed in his ears. And in that moment, he realized that he was more than just an outsider. He was a voice, and he would not let Trent's cruelty silence him. In the quiet aftermath of the talent show, Elias sat alone on a bench outside the school. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the playground. He felt a deep shame mixed with anger swirling inside him. "Why did I think I could fit in here?" he whispered to himself, his hands clenched into fists. The taunts of Trent echoed in his mind, each word a reminder of his outsider status. Juliet, who had been watching from a distance, approached cautiously. She could see the hurt in Elias's eyes. "Elias, I'm so sorry about what happened. That wasn't fair," she said softly, taking a seat beside him. Elias looked up, his expression a mix of pain and confusion. "It doesn't matter, Juliet. I thought I could show them who I am, but all I did was make a fool of myself." His voice cracked, and he turned his gaze to the ground. "No, you didn't," Juliet insisted, her voice firm. "You were brave to get up there and sing. You showed everyone your heart." She paused, searching for the right words. "But I know it's hard. I see how they treat you. It's not right." Elias sighed, feeling the weight of her words. "But it's not just Trent. It's all of them. They laugh at me. I feel like I don't belong anywhere." Juliet hesitated. I want to help you, but I'm scared too. If I stand by you, what will they think of me?" The honesty in her voice made Elias look at her, surprised. "Why does it matter what they think?" he asked, a hint of frustration creeping into his tone. "If they are your friends, shouldn't they support you?" Juliet bit her lip, her eyes cast down. "I guess I've been more worried about fitting in. But I'm realizing that it's not worth it if it means watching you suffer." Elias felt a flicker of hope. "So what do we do? How do I stop feeling like this?" She took a deep breath. "Maybe we start by not letting them get to us. You're not what they say you are. You have to believe that." Elias nodded slowly, trying to absorb her words. "I want to believe that. I really do. But how do I embrace who I am when everywhere I turn, there's someone ready to put me down?" Juliet thought for a moment. "What if we find a way to show them? Maybe we could do something together. Something that lets them see who you really are." Elias lifted his gaze, intrigued. "What do you mean?" "We could organize a talent showcase, invite everyone to share their talents, not just those who want to show off," Juliet suggested, her eyes lighting up with excitement. "It could be a chance for everyone to be themselves. You can sing again, but this time, it'll be different. It'll be about us, about who we really are." Elias felt a spark of determination growing inside him. That could work. But what if they laugh again? Juliet smiled encouragingly. "Then we'll laugh with them. We'll show them that we're not afraid to be ourselves. It'll be a chance for everyone to see that we all struggle in our own ways. Trust me, Elias. You're not alone in this." As they talked about the idea, Elias began to see a way forward, a chance to turn his pain into something powerful. He could feel the warmth of Juliet's friendship, a light cutting through the darkness he had felt. "I'll do it," he said finally, a new strength in his voice. "I'll embrace who I am, no more hiding." Juliet beamed, her excitement contagious. "Yes, let's make this happen together. We'll invite everyone." Elias smiled for the first time that day. Together. With that, they began to brainstorm ideas for the showcase, a renewed sense of hope filling the air around them. Elias felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. For the first time in a long while, he felt he was no longer alone. The journey ahead would not be easy, but with Juliet by his side, he was ready to face it. Elias stood in front of the school assembly, his heart pounding in his chest. He had never imagined he would find himself in this position, but today felt different. Today, he was ready to face Trent and the cruelty that had haunted him for so long. As he looked out over the crowd of students, he noticed both familiar faces and strangers, all waiting to hear what he had to say. Taking a deep breath, Elias stepped forward. Hi everyone," he began, his voice shaking slightly. "I know I'm not the most popular person here, but I want to talk about something important." He glanced at Juliet, who stood at the back, offering him a reassuring smile. Her presence gave him strength. "I've been at this school for a while now," he continued, "and I've seen how we treat each other. Sometimes it feels like there are two worlds here, one for the rich and popular, and another for everyone else." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I've felt the weight of that division. I've felt alone and out of place." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some students exchanged glances, while others looked down at their feet. Elias pressed on, fueled by the urgency of his message. "But it doesn't have to be this way. We don't have to accept bullying or cruelty as normal. We can choose kindness." From the back of the assembly, Trent stood with his friends, a smirk on his face. "What are you talking about, Elias?" You think you can change anything?" he shouted, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Laughter erupted from his group, and Elias felt a wave of fear wash over him, but he remembered Juliet's encouragement and stood firm. "Yes, Trent, I do believe I can change things," Elias replied, his voice steadying. "It starts with each of us making a choice. We can either keep hurting each other, or we can start supporting one another. It's our choice." Elias could see some students nodding in agreement. He pushed forward, feeling a surge of confidence. "I know I'm not perfect, and I've made mistakes too, but I want to be better, and I want all of us to be better. We can create a school where everyone feels like they belong, regardless of their background or how much money they have." Trent's expression shifted, the smirk fading as he realized that the crowd was no longer laughing with him. Elias continued, speaking with passion. "We all have our struggles. I've struggled to fit in, and I know many of you have too. Let's listen to each other's stories instead of tearing each other down." A girl in the front row raised her hand. "Elias, I've felt left out too. I thought it was just me." Her voice trembled, but there was strength in her honesty. Others began to nod, murmuring in agreement. Elias felt a warmth spread through him. "Exactly. It's not just you. We all have our stories, and they matter. Let's share them and create a space where everyone feels safe and valued." Slowly, more students began to stand up. "I was bullied in middle school," one boy admitted. "I thought it would never stop." Another girl spoke up. "I've been afraid to join clubs because I didn't think I'd fit in." As each person shared, the atmosphere shifted. Laughter and mockery faded, replaced by a sense of understanding and empathy. Elias could see the realization dawning on many faces, a spark of change igniting in the hearts of his peers. Trent looked around, his bravado slipping away as he sensed the shift in the crowd. "You're all just following him," he muttered, his voice barely audible. But there was no laughter now, only a growing sense of unity. Elias finished his speech, feeling lighter than he had in weeks. "Let's be the change we want to see. Let's stand up against cruelty together." He smiled at the crowd, hope blooming within him. As the assembly ended, students began to talk among themselves, sharing their thoughts and experiences. Elias felt a sense of belonging that he had never experienced before. He knew this was just the beginning, but he had taken a stand, and it felt powerful. Juliet approached him, her eyes shining with pride. "You did it, Elias. You really inspired people today." "Thanks, Juliet. I couldn't have done it without your support," he replied, his heart full. Together, they stepped into a new chapter of their lives, one where kindness could flourish and change was possible. As the weeks passed, the atmosphere at the school began to change. Elias felt a growing sense of belonging as his peers started to embrace the idea of kindness. No longer did he walk the halls with his head down, but rather with a lighter heart and a sense of purpose. The whispers and disdainful looks that once haunted him were replaced by nods of acknowledgement and smiles of support. One afternoon, as Elias sat in the cafeteria with Juliet, he noticed a group of students gathering in the corner. They were discussing the upcoming talent showcase that was to celebrate the diverse voices within the school. Elias felt a flutter of excitement mixed with anxiety. "Do you think I should perform again?" he asked Juliet, his voice barely above a whisper. Juliet looked at him, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. "Absolutely. You have so much to share, Elias. And this time, it's about everyone coming together. You should be part of it." Elias nodded, feeling the warmth of her support. He remembered how his heart had raced the last time he performed. But this time, it felt different. He had the strength of his connections with Juliet and the other students who had rallied behind him. "Okay, I'll do it," he said, determination growing within him. As the days led up to the showcase, more students approached Elias, eager to share their own stories and talents. A girl named Mia, who had always kept to herself, shyly approached him one day. "I heard you're performing," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I want to sing too. Can we do it together?" Elias smiled, feeling a sense of camaraderie. Of course, let's make it a duet. What do you want to sing? Mia's eyes brightened. I've always loved fight song. It's about standing strong. Perfect choice, Elias replied, enthusiasm bubbling up inside him. As they practiced, Elias felt the weight of his past begin to lift. He was no longer just the outsider. He was part of a community that was beginning to embrace each other's differences. Juliet helped arrange rehearsals and brought together a group of students who wanted to participate in the showcase. Together, they formed a circle of support, and each practice brought them closer. On the night of the talent showcase, the auditorium buzzed with energy. Students and parents filled the seats, eager to witness the transformation that had taken place within the school. On stage, the atmosphere was electric, with laughter and excitement filling the air. Elias stood backstage, his heart racing again. But this time it was from anticipation rather than fear. You ready? Juliet asked, her voice steadying him. He took a deep breath. Yeah, I think so. Let's do this. As they stepped out onto the stage, the lights shone brightly, illuminating their faces. The audience erupted in applause, and Elias felt a rush of adrenaline. He glanced at Mia, who smiled back at him, and together they began to sing. Their voices harmonized beautifully, and as they sang the final notes, the crowd erupted into cheers. Elias felt a sense of joy flooding through him. This was more than just a performance. It was a celebration of every student's journey. After their song, the applause continued, and Elias looked out at the audience. He noticed Trent sitting in the back, a thoughtful expression on his face. For the first time, he seemed to be listening, really listening. As the showcase continued, various students took the stage, each sharing their talents and stories. From poetry readings to dance performances, the night was a tapestry of voices that celebrated their differences. At the end of the night, Elias stood with Juliet and Mia, watching the audience rise for a standing ovation. We did it, Elias said, his voice filled with awe. We really did it. Juliet beamed. This is just the beginning. We've changed so much already. Imagine what else we can do together. Elias reflected on his journey, feeling grateful for the connections he had formed and the strength he had found within himself. He realized that true strength lay not in fitting in, but in being authentically himself. As the crowd began to disperse, Elias felt a wave of hope wash over him. He had not only found his voice, but had inspired others to find theirs as well. In that moment, he knew he was no longer an outsider. He was a vital part of a community that valued kindness, acceptance, and unity. Share this story if you believe that kindness and acceptance can transform lives. Leave a comment about a moment when you found your voice or supported someone else in their journey. Don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories like this.